All right, so you want to talk about coffee and muscles?
Yeah.
Let's dive into it.
Okay.
We're looking at some really interesting research today.
Right.
It comes from the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition.
Okay.
And they were curious about how coffee affects those teeny tiny blood vessels in your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ones that are delivering all the good stuff, all the oxygen and nutrients that your muscles need to work their best.
Right, right.
But they didn't just stop there, oh no.
Okay.
They also wanted to know if coffee can actually make you stronger during your workout.
Yeah.
Big questions.
Yeah.
So to start off, they gathered a group of 20 young, healthy men.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the catch. These guys weren't regular coffee drinkers.
So they were caffeine naive.
Exactly. They were like caffeine newbies, which is actually really important for the study because it means their bodies weren't used to that regular caffeine jolt, so the researchers could really see the pure impact of coffee.
Exactly. They wanted a clean slate to work with.
Right. No caffeine tolerance to muddy the waters. And get this, they use Nescafe.
Nescafe, really?
Yeah, like the instant coffee.
Interesting.
I know, right? Super relatable. So we're not talking about some fancy espresso concoction here. This is like your everyday cup of joe.
Okay, so they're keeping it simple. What did they do? Have them chug a cup and then hit the treadmill.
Not quite. They divided the guys into 3 groups.
Okay.
One group got a placebo, which was basically just decaf.
Right.
Another group got a low dose of caffeine.
Okay.
And the last group, they got a pretty hefty dose of caffeine.
So a low dose, a high dose, and a placebo.
Exactly. Now, to track what was happening in their muscles, they used something called NIRS, near-infrared spectroscopy.
Okay, so that's how they measured what was going on.
Exactly. It's a way to measure the oxygen levels in the muscles, both when the guys were just chilling and when they were working out.
So both at rest and during exercise.
You got it. They wanted to see the full picture. But how did they actually test the effects, you ask?
Yeah, how did they put that caffeine to the test?
Well, they had them hop on some stationary bikes,
Oh, okay.
and they put them through an incremental cycling test.
So they started off easy and then...
It got tougher and tougher
Okay.
until they were completely maxed out. And this was all to figure out their peak performance.
Right, so like how much oxygen they were using at their maximum oxygen consumption?
That's one way to put it.
And what about their peak power output?
That too.
Okay, so we've got our participants, their coffee, or decaf, and a way to peek into their muscles.
Right. It's like a muscle mystery. And coffee is our prime suspect. So what were the first clues they uncovered?
Well, the first big aha moment came when they looked at the muscles at rest. Remember how we talked about microvascular reactivity?
Right. That's all about how well those tiny blood vessels can widen and relax.
Exactly. So they found that the high caffeine group, the guys who got that big dose, had significantly better microvascular reactivity compared to the placebo group.
Okay, before we get lost in the science jargon, break it down for us regular folks. What does that actually mean?
Think of it like this. Caffeine seems to make the blood vessels in your muscles more responsive even when you're just chilling out. They can dilate more effectively, which means more blood, oxygen, and all those good nutrients can reach the muscles even before you start working out.
Wow, so sipping on coffee could be like giving your muscles a head start.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, but why? What is it about caffeine that makes it such a blood vessel whisperer?
Well, it's not just one thing. Caffeine's a multitasker, you see. First off, it seems to have a positive impact on something called endothelial function.
Endothelial function. Now that's a mouthful.
I know, right? But it's actually pretty cool. The endothelium is this thin layer of cells lining your blood vessels. It's like the gatekeeper, controlling how much blood can flow through.
So caffeine is basically telling the gatekeeper to open the floodgates wider.
You got it. But here's the thing. The endothelium releases the special molecule called nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide. Sounds familiar.
It might. It's actually a gas. But in the body, it acts like a signaling molecule. And it plays a key role in vasodilation. That's the fancy term for blood vessels widening.
Ah, okay. So nitric oxide tells the blood vessels to relax and open up, allowing more blood to flow through.
Exactly. You can think of nitric oxide as a chill-out signal for your blood vessels, and caffeine seems to be boosting its effects.
So caffeine is encouraging our blood vessels to just chill out and let the blood flow through.
You've got it. But wait, there's more.
Well, there's more.
Caffeine doesn't stop there. It also interacts with our sympathetic nervous system, our fight-or-flight response.
Ah, that old friend. The one that kicks in when I'm about to give a presentation or, run from a bear.
Exactly. That's the one. This system releases hormones like adrenaline, And caffeine seems to influence how these hormones act, further impacting blood vessel dilation. It's like caffeine is giving the fight or flight response a little nudge, getting things ready for action.
So it's like a double whammy on those blood vessels.
You could say that. But hold on, we're not done yet. There's one more piece to this puzzle.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the final ingredient in this coffee-fueled cocktail?
Calcium.
Calcium. Like what's in milk?
The very same. You see, calcium is really important for muscle contraction.
Right. Strong bones, strong muscles, all that jazz.
Exactly. And it turns out caffeine can affect how calcium is used within muscle cells, which also plays a role in how well those blood vessels can relax and widen. It's like caffeine is fine-tuning the whole system for optimal blood flow.
Okay, so coffee is way more complex than I thought. It's like a symphony of caffeine, nitric oxide, and calcium, all working together to boost blood flow to our muscles. We've got this pre-workout boost even before we lift a finger. But what happens when those muscles actually have to work?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. That's where we see if coffee's pre-workout perks actually translate into better performance, you know?
Right, like does all that extra blood flow actually translate into more power, more endurance, you know?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Great, you got to give me the details.
Okay, so we'd think that with all that extra blood flow from the caffeine,
Yeah.
those muscles would be able to suck up more oxygen during exercise.
Right, because more blood usually means more fuel for those working muscles.
Exactly. And here's the crazy part. The study found no significant difference in muscle oxygen extraction during exercise between any of the three groups.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So even with all that extra blood pumping in,
Yeah,
the muscles weren't actually using more oxygen during the workout.
that's right. It seems that while coffee might give you a head start with blood flow,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily make your muscles more efficient at grabbing oxygen on the fly during exercise.
So it's like having a turbocharged fuel line, but the engine itself isn't using any more fuel than usual.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
More blood flow,
Yeah.
but no change in oxygen use during exercise. Huh. So did they find any difference in how the different groups performed? Or was all that extra blood flow just for show?
Okay, so get this. Even though coffee didn't directly boost oxygen use during the cycling,
Yeah.
the high caffeine group, the ones who got that big dose of caffeine, they still achieved greater peak power output.
Hold on. Back up a second.
Yeah.
They performed better, but without using more oxygen.
It seems counterintuitive.
How is that even possible? That's like running a marathon without taking extra breaths.
I know, it's pretty wild. This unexpected finding suggests that coffee's performance benefits might be coming from a completely different place than we thought.
Okay, now you really got my attention. If it's not about the oxygen, then what's going on? What are the researchers thinking?
They're looking at a couple of different things.
Right.
One idea is that caffeine might be enhancing something called muscle contractility.
Muscle contractility. Okay.
Yeah.
For those of us who don't speak science, what does that even mean?
Basically, it means that caffeine could be helping the muscle fibers themselves contract with more force,
Oh, okay.
even without more oxygen.
So it's like coffee is giving your muscles a little extra oomph, making them stronger, even if they're not getting more oxygen.
Exactly. And here's another thought. Caffeine is known to affect our perception of effort.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely heard that one before.
Right.
Like you have those pre-workout drinks that make you feel like you can conquer the world.
Exactly.
Even if your body's struggling to keep up.
That's the caffeine talking.
Right.
It all comes down to how caffeine interacts with our brains. It might be interfering with certain neurotransmitters.
Which are?
Oh, those are just the chemical messengers in the brain
Okay.
that signal things like fatigue and pain.
Oh, so it's blocking those signals.
Exactly. It's like putting a filter on those signals, so even though your body might be working just as hard,
Yeah.
your brain is getting a slightly different message, and that message says, hey, we're crushing this.
That's fascinating. So even though coffee may not be directly impacting how our muscles use oxygen during exercise,
Right.
it could be working on these other systems like muscle contractility or even our perception of effort to boost performance.
Exactly. It's a multitasker.
This little bean is full of surprises. But let's bring it back to our listeners.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for them?
Yeah.
Should they be loading up on espresso before hitting the gym? So what's the verdict? Should we be chugging cold brew before our next workout? Is that the secret sauce?
Well, I wouldn't go that far just yet. You see, this study gives us some really cool clues,
Okay.
but it's really just one piece of the puzzle. There's
Okay.
still so much we don't know about how coffee and exercise interact.
Okay, so maybe pump the brakes on that extra cup of coffee for now. But what are some key takeaways here? What should our listeners walk away with, especially if they're thinking about their own coffee habits in their workouts?
Well, even if you aren't exactly a gym rat, this study showed us that coffee, especially the kind with caffeine, seems to boost blood flow to the muscles,
Yeah.
even before you start working out.
Right.
And for most people, that translates into better recovery after a tough workout.
Okay.
Less soreness, maybe you can even bounce back faster for your next workout.
I am all about anything that helps me recover faster. Who needs an ice bath when you've got coffee? Am I right?
Exactly. And while more research is definitely needed,
Okay.
some experts even think that this improved blood flow we're talking about could have benefits for your overall health.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good circulation is important for, well, pretty much everything.
Right, so it's not just about hitting PRs in the gym.
Exactly.
So we've got potentially faster recovery.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this mystery of how it impacts performance.
Right.
But what would you say is the biggest takeaway here?
You know, I think it's a good reminder that even things we think we know a lot about,
Yeah.
like coffee, can still surprise us.
Oh, absolutely.
This study really challenges some of our assumptions about how coffee affects our muscles and our workouts.
It goes to show you, our bodies are complicated.
You really are.
There's always something new to discover.
Right.
All right, so to recap, a good cup of joe might give your muscles a little pre-workout boost even before you start sweating,
Yeah.
all thanks to that improved blood flow.
Exactly. And while we're still figuring out how coffee impacts your performance,
Right.
it seems like it could be doing its thing through different ways than we initially thought.
Yeah.
Maybe it's giving those muscle contractions a boost.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's giving our brains that little extra motivation.
It's like a little pep talk in a mug.
That's one way to put it.
Well, there you have it, folks. A
Good.
caffeine-fueled mystery to ponder.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of coffee,
Yeah,
muscles, and all those surprising connections in between.
absolutely.
Until next time, keep those brains brewing.